My name is Jackie Irwin. My presentation explores Indigenous poetry. No disrespect is intended in my interpretation of what I have learned. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the place on which I learn and on which we gather. The elders past, present and future of the Gubbi Gubbi or Kabi Kabi people. My presentation contains images and mention of deceased Indigenous people. There are three main categories of Indigenous poetry: storytelling, country and kinship, and protest. Sitting in a circle like this is the way storytelling was, and is done, and the best way for learning through stories and yarns. Notice that the people are drawing in the sand as they tell the story. Aboriginal culture is an oral culture, and for 40,000 years or more, it has been passed down from generation to generation. Storytelling is a key learning process in Aboriginal culture. It is a way of passing knowledge to children. Traditionally, Aboriginal storytelling has reinforced the Aboriginal people's ideological beliefs in the Dreamtime, their creation, and other cultural stories of the rainbow serpent and their environment. Storytelling in traditional times explained culture, how the world evolved, and gave examples of good and bad ethics. Stories passed on information about the creation of plants, animals and humans, information about ancestral beings and places, the boundaries of people's tribal lands, how ancestors came to Australia, how people migrated across the country and arrived in a particular part of the country. Stories were also used to explain people's spirituality, heritage and law. Today, storytelling in Indigenous Australia is still a very important way of passing on information to people. For thousands of years, information has been passed on orally through stories and songs. In recent times, Aboriginal people have found a new voice for keeping their stories alive, and that is through literature, printed storytelling. Today you can see and hear traditional storytelling in many types of music, plays, poetry, books, artwork, on television, and on the web, and you can now read in books the traditional stories that were once only spoken. Aboriginal writing has become recognized as a genre in its own right. Blackwood's publication collated data of text types written by Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander writers. The data showed poetry to be the literary activity most often engaged in, signifying its importance in their contemporary storytelling. The Legend of the Seven Sisters is an Indigenous traditional story that has been retold in various contemporary text formats: picture, storybook, art, song, video, poetry. As you look up into the sky at night, you can see many stars. The Wongatha people of the Eastern Goldfields area in Western Australia tell stories about the stars, explaining how the stars came to be where they are. Some stars are grouped together and have special names. One of these groups of stars is called the Seven Sisters, Pleiades. The sisters were beautiful women who used to visit the earth and wander the land. This is the story of why they appear in their position in the night sky. In this picture storybook, Aboriginal author May O'Brien explains how the Seven Sisters came to be. To locate the Seven Sisters, Pleiades, first find Orion's belt, which is made up of 3 stars in a short row. These stars point towards a small bright star called Aldebaran. Continue beyond Aldebaran and you will encounter the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. Many Indigenous painters have created representations of the Seven Sisters. Here are a couple of their paintings. This is an example of a poem written from an Indigenous perspective about the star systems, including the Seven Sisters. The star tribes look among the boughs. Those stars are men. There's Njintu, with his dogs, who guards the skins of everlasting water in the sky. And there's the Crow Man, carrying on his back the wounded Hawk Man. There's the serpent, Thuru, glistening in the leaves. There's Kalpita, the Moon Man, sitting in his Mia Mia. And there's those Seven Sisters, traveling across the sky. They make the real cold frost. You hear them when you're camped out on the plains. They'll look down from the sky and see your fire and my, they'd sing out as they run across the sky. And, when you wake, you find your swag, the camp, the plains, all white with frost. These stories keep alive the traditions and heritage of Indigenous Australia not only within Indigenous communities, but also within the wider community. This helps to increase understanding and awareness between people. Today, as well as elders in the communities, there are professional storytellers who visit schools and other educational groups passing on their knowledge about Indigenous culture and beliefs. This poem was written by 3 Indigenous children explaining about learning via storytelling in Indigenous culture. Dreaming stories. My culture is my identity. Dreamtime stories tell the life of my people. Growing older. Hearing stories of my ancestors living off the land. Becoming one with the creatures even though I haven't met them, I feel this unbreakable connection through the stories I have heard. The stories that have been passed down through generations. These stories are living through us. Without our culture, we have no identity, and, without our identity, we have nothing. The second category of Indigenous poetry is about relationships with country, the land, and kinship relationships. I will explore country first, and then kinship. The interdependence of all life within country constitutes a hard but essential lesson. Those who destroy their country ultimately destroy themselves. Life is meaningful, and much human activity, art, music, dance, philosophy, religion, ritual and daily activity, is about celebrating and promoting life. Country is the key, the matrix, the essential heart of life. It follows that much Aboriginal art, literature and poetry has country as its focus. This poem describes Aboriginal spiritual connection to the land. The land. We have walked on the land for thousands of years. We are caretakers of the land, not owners of the land. We are one with the land. We hunt on the land feeds us. We make all uses of the land. We have cultural ceremony on the land. We have all-embracing knowledge of how the land changes and how to adapt to that change. We know how to read the land. We communicate with each other concerning the land. The land is part of our dreaming. Stories of country were not only entertaining, but they enabled a learning process whereby the matter of survival became the basis of their telling. Children had to listen and learn. Not to do so meant certain death. Thunderstorm. After sundown the clouds start to burn, a big one is bending low, stays and breaks up, then it rounds again and raises its forehead high. On both ends sheet lightning shines. In the middle where the first layer is gone, you can see the flash, even inside your home. Everything dissolves. In the desert, widespread falls the cloudburst, drenching all the trees between 2 sand hills. The previous items were about relationships with country. The next section explores kinship relationships in poetry. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have a complex system of family relations, where each person knows their kin and land. These extended family relationships are the core of Indigenous kinship systems that are central to the way culture is passed on, and society is organized. Kinship systems define where a person fits into the community, binding people together in relationships of sharing and obligation. These systems may vary across communities, but they serve similar functions across Australia. Kinship defines roles and responsibilities for raising and educating children, and structures systems of moral and financial support within the community. Ballad of the Totems, by Ujeri Knuckle. My father was Knuckle man and kept old tribal way. His totem was the carpet snake, whom none must ever slay. But mother was of Pee-wee clan, and loudly she expressed the daring view that carpet snakes were nothing but a pest. Now one lived right inside with us in full immunity, for no one dared to interfere with father's stern decree, a mighty fellow 10 feet long, and as we lay in bed, we kids could watch him round a beam not far above our head. Only the dog was scared of him. We'd hear its whines and growls, but Mother fiercely hated him because he took her fowls. You should have heard her diatribes that flowed in angry torrents, with words you never see in print, except in D.H. Lawrence. "I killed that robber," she would scream, fierce as a spotted cat. "You see that bulge inside of him? My speckle hen make that." But Father's loud and strict command made even Mother quake. "I think he'd sooner kill a man than kill a carpet snake." That reptile was a greedy guts, and as each bulge digested, he'd come down on the hunt at night as appetite suggested. We heard his stealthy slithering sound across the earthen floor, while the dog gave a startled yelp and bolted out the door. Then over in the chicken yard, hysterical fowls give tongue, loud frantic squawks accompanied by the barking of the mung, until at last the racket passed, and then to solve the riddle, next morning he was back up there with a new bulge in his middle. When Father died we wailed and cried, our grief was deep and sore. And strange to say, from that sad day, the snake was seen no more. The wise old men explained to us, it was his tribal brother, and that is why it done a guy, but some looked hard at Mother. She seemed to have a secret smile, her eyes were smug and wary, she looked as innocent as the cat that ate the pet canary. We never knew, but anyhow, to end this tragic rhyme, I think we all had snake for tea, one day about that time. Indigenous writers have opened up a whole new concept in Australian writing. Readers are getting a different perspective on Aboriginal life because stories are coming from an Aboriginal point of view, recorded and written by Aborigines from their own experiences of being Aboriginal. And they are having more say in what is being written about them. Aboriginal people are rewriting Australia's history through their literary output. Politics of identity plays across all forms of Aboriginal literature, from the earliest poetry to the most recent children's literature and autobiography. Ujeru of the New Knuckle was known as Kath Walker until 1988. She was born Kathleen Jean Mary Ruska on 3 November 1920, on North Stradbroke Island. She was one of 7 children of Ted and Lucy Ruska. Her father belonged to the New Knuckle people, the traditional inhabitants of the island. He campaigned for better conditions for Aboriginal workers, which made a strong impression on his daughter. In the 1950s, Walker became interested in writing poetry. The plain-speaking style of her poetry, and the strong element of protest in it, precluded literary acclaim of her work, but the role of a political protest poet was one in which she would come to revel. Integration, yes. By Ujeru New Knuckle. Gratefully we learn from you, the advanced race, you with long centuries of lore behind you. We who were Australians long before you who came yesterday, eagerly we must learn to change, learn new needs we never wanted, new compulsions never needed, the price of survival. Much that we loved is gone and had to go, but not the deep indigenous things. The past is still so much a part of us, still about us, still within us. We are happiest among our own people. We would like to see our own customs kept, our old dances and songs, crafts and camaraderie. Why change our sacred myths for your sacred myths? No, not assimilation but integration, not submergence but over uplifting, so black and white may go forward together in harmony and brotherhood. Lionel George Fogarty was born in 1958 at Barambah, now known as Cherbourg Aboriginal Reserve. Fogarty has stated that his introduction to poetry was not at school, but came through his interaction with Murray people in Cherbourg and Morgan. Since the 1970s, he has been active in many of the political struggles of the Aboriginal people, particularly in southern Queensland, from the land rights movement, to setting up Aboriginal health and legal services, to the issue of black deaths in custody. Fogarty's own brother, Daniel, died in police custody in 1991. An unabashedly political poet, Fogarty's poetry employs Aboriginal English in innovative ways, challenging reader to reconfigure cultural assumptions. Fair Skin Abo, by Lionel Fogarty. I may not be charcoal colored, but I'm black. I mightn't have sheer colored, like a cloudy night sky, but I'm black. I may wear European clothing, but I'm black. I may own many white materials, but I'm black. I may speak English, but I'm black. I may not have the darkest complexion, but I'm black. I am an alcoholic, and I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm black. I am a drug addict old bludger, I'm not a drug addict old bludger, but I'm black. I don't spear kangaroos all day, but I'm black. I may not live in the bush, naked, but I'm black. I may not live, but I'm black. I mightn't chase kangaroos or emmas, but I'm black. You may think I'm half caste, but I'm black. You may think I'm kind of quarter caste, but I'm black. That's right, black. Black to the bone, black. Black, too black. Black, thorough and thorough. But my physicality may not be, but mentally, I'm black. Thank you for watching and considering my presentation. Any questions?